Inflação. Esse mal ficou por um bom tempo razoavelmente controlado. O que pode até mesmo te ter feito esquecer que a nossa moeda hoje, o real, foi criado para justamente combater a hiperinflação do início dos anos 90.
Inflação. A palavra assusta os brasileiros, principalmente quem enfrentou os tempos de inflação alta nos anos 80, início da década de 90. Você que é jovem, na época muitas famílias faziam estoques de produtos em casa para escapar dos aumentos.
O aumento no preço da carne, que chegou a 50% em 2 meses, já era esperado por causa da entre-safra. Mas no caso do feijão, o aumento chegou a 100% nos últimos 60 dias.
E, no longo prazo, é até mesmo assustador ver como a inflação destrói o seu poder de compra.
Esse daqui, olha, é o ovo super extra branco, tá? Granja Aveiro, tá custando 99 centavos, 12, uma dúzia de ovos.
Dessa forma, nos últimos anos, esse problema tem dado as caras novamente, devido aos recentes acontecimentos. Por isso, o Warren Buffett faz um alerta sobre como está o nível da inflação no mundo, e mostra como você pode se proteger dela.
Are you seeing signs of inflation beginning to increase?
Let me answer that. Greg can give more. We're seeing very substantial inflation. It's very interesting. I mean, we're raising prices. People are raising prices to us. It's being accepted. I mean, it's not take home building. I mean, the cost of we've got 9 home builders, in addition to our manufactured housing thing, and then operation, which is the largest in the country. So we really do a lot of housing. The costs are just up. Steel costs, just every day, they're going up, and there hasn't yet been, because the wage stuff follows. I mean, if the UAW writes a 3-year contract, we got a 3-year contract. But if you're buying steel at General Motors or someplace, you're paying more every day. It's an economy really, it's red hot. I mean, and we weren't expecting it. I mean, all our companies, when they thought when they were allowed to go back to work, at our various operations, we closed the furniture stores. I mentioned, they were closed for 6 weeks or so on average, and they didn't know what was going to happen when they opened. And, they can't stop people from buying things. And we can't deliver them. And they say, well, that's okay, because nobody else can deliver them either. And we'll wait for 3 months or something. So that the backlog grows. And then we thought it would end when the $600 payments ended. And I think, around August of last year, it just kept going. And it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. And I get the figures every week. I call, or Bumpkin calls me, and we go over day by day what happened at 3 different stores in Chicago and Kansas City and Dallas. And it just won't stop. People have money in their pocket, and they pay higher prices. And when carpet prices go up in a month or two, we announced a price increase for April. For our costs are going up. Supply chains all screwed up, for all kinds of people. But it's almost a buying frenzy, except certain areas you can't buy it. You really can't buy international air travel, and so the money is being diverted from a piece of the economy into the rest. It is not a price-sensitive economy right now in the least, and I don't know exactly how when it shows up in different price indices, but there's more inflation going on quite a bit more inflation going on than people would have anticipated just 6 months ago or thereabouts.
Yeah, and there's one very intelligent man who thinks it's dangerous. And that's just the start.
Well, inflation, Keynes said it many years ago that it's an invisible tax that only one man in a million really understands. And it's a tax on people that have had faith in their currency that the government's issued. The best protection, the best investment against inflation is to improve your own earning power, your own talents. Very few people maximize their talents. And if you increase your talents, they can't tax it while you're doing it. They can't take it away from you. So if you become more useful in your activities, your profession, doctor, lawyer, whatever it may be, that is the best protection against a currency that might decline at a rapid rate. And the best investment passive investment, I think, is a good business. If you own an interest in a good business, you're very likely to maintain purchasing power no matter what happens to the currency. But it's interesting. In the United States, the value of the dollar since I was born has declined by 94% to 6 cents. So inflation is a very cruel tax on people who believe in fixed dollars, but things can work out pretty well even during inflationary times. I mean, if somebody told me when I was born, that the dollar bill is going to go to 6 cents, I might have said, let me go back. I'm not interested in emerging into that kind of a world. But actually, it's worked out pretty well, so I have no complaints.
The best thing is to have a lot of earning power of your own. If you're the best brain surgeon in town, or even the best lawyer in town, you will retain purchasing power in terms of your income no matter what happens. Whether people are using seashells for money or whatever as time goes by. But in the investment world, it's tougher. But Charlie and I think the best answer is to own fine businesses that will be able to price in inflationary terms and will not have huge capital investment that is required to handle the larger dollar volume of sales. Some years ago, I used See's Candy in the annual report as an example of the kind of business that more or less can handle an inflationary world and maintain investment and value no matter what happens to the currency. Unfortunately, most businesses will not come out well in real terms during inflation. Their earnings may go up a fair amount over time, but they're compelled to put more and more dollars into the business just to stay in the same place. And, the worst kind of a business is one that makes you put more money on the table all the time and doesn't give you greater earnings. So you really want a business that can have pricing that reflects inflation and does not have very much capital investment that reflects inflation. But inflation is the enemy of the investor in terms of real returns. As you know, there are in this country, as well as a half a dozen other countries, there are what they call inflation-protected bonds. We call them TIPS in the United States, where the income is adjusted, or the principal amount is adjusted to inflation, and that's not a bad investment for people that have worries about inflation heating up. And I think, incidentally, we're starting to see it heat up in this country. Charlie?
Yeah, most people are going to get a very small real return from investment after considering inflation and taxes. I think that's an iron law of the world. And if for a brief period some of us do better than that, we ought to be very thankful. One of the great defenses to being worried about inflation is not having a lot of silly needs in your life. In other words, if you haven't created a lot of artificial demand to drown in consumer goods, why, you have considerable defense against the vicissitudes of life.
Charlie, we're selling consumer goods in the other room. It's okay to talk that way at home, but
it doesn't do any good there.
I know the feeling.